Welcome, all you sinners and sodomites, to episode 41 of Bible Stories for Atheists. I am Josh.
I'm Linz.
And we are your guides to the gloriously goofy stories, literally littering the Bible. And we're talking about what?
You're leaning.
You have commentary?
Leaning real hard on the vocal burn today.
The vocal burn.
Yeah. It was very intense.
Yeah. We're talking about Jonah today.
Yep.
You can tell how Lynn's enjoyed the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
spoilers. Yep.
Yeah. It's a good story. Like, I think
right.
the episode.
Pull back on that.
No. Let me rephrase. The episode, I think, was good.
Oh.
I think us going over it was good. The story itself,
meh,
not as good as Lynn's had thought it would be.
Okay, listen. I didn't think it was going to be good.
Yeah.
I thought there was going to be more.
Yeah, and there is not more.
And also, I'm mad because the actual story itself leads to a pretty decent moral that just kind of, in my opinion, is completely just overlooked and cut out of the general knowledge of the story.
Completely overshadowed.
Yeah.
It's definitely an interesting one to go back to and read.
Mm-hmm.
And
it won't take you long.
Yeah, and not get just, I swear to God, children's books written on this story are longer than this, the actual source material.
I would imagine that they have to extrapolate what actually happens because every single kid that hears about this story wants to know what fucking happened. All right. Let's just listen to the podcast. I feel like I'm going to just go into it all over again.
Right, yeah.
That's not what this intro is for.
Right. Really inflamed Lindsay. If you're looking to get in touch with us, you can call our voicemail, 1-616-320-4616. You can leave us a message. You can also reach out on our subreddit, r/BibleAtheists, or you could use our contact form on our website, bsfa.cc. So strap in, strap on for episode 41. What an ashole.
Your lotion. Just waiting for you to run over it and squirt it everywhere.
There's not much left in there anyway. Not to brag.
I used all my lotion.
It's a weird humble brag. Not even a humble brag.
Not even a humble brag. A weird brag.
Yeah.
I'm so moisturized. I'm so soft and supple.
Constantly going around saying that.
Touch me. I'm so soft and supple.
So soft. So supple. Maybe it's Maybelline. So today, we're talking about Jonah.
Oh, the whale guy.
Yeah. Except not a whale.
Fish.
Yes. It's a big fish.
That's what you keep saying.
Yeah.
But.
Because that is more credible than a whale.
Is it?
I don't know.
I don't think that it is. Because the only fish that's big enough to swallow a person
is a dolphin.
A whale.
Oh.
Not a dolphin.
Oh.
Dolphin will fuck you.
Like a big dolphin.
No. The dolphin will fuck you.
Yeah.
Not put you inside of them that way.
Yeah. That was a different book of the Bible.
Yeah.
That was a different guy.
Yeah. It's Flipper.
Yeah.
That's the story of Flipper.
Flipper 316. Flipper fucked a dude. Anyway.
I mean, you always hear those stories about people who go to the dolphin experiences and then the dolphin
But what you never hear is the dark underbelly.
Oh no, you hear about it all the time.
Oh.
How people are like, the dolphin tried to fuck me. I think those dolphins
Flipper really liked me.
Did you? So I we're starting this completely off topic, but you brought up dolphins, so I blame you for this. There was a story I heard once. I think it was on This American Life, where they were talking to this woman the scientist, who was part of this experiment. I want to say it was the 70s, which totally makes sense.
Oh, I think I remember.
Where they were trying to teach dolphins to talk using human language.
Yeah.
And she was talking about how he would get really, like, it was a teenage dolphin. Like, one of the dolphins she was working with was this, like, had grown up and was, like, entering its teenage years.
Right.
And it was really fucking horny all the time. And she couldn't get it to focus. The only way she could get it to focus was to
manually
masturbate the
dolphins
to the completion.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that'll get it to focus.
It did.
Yeah.
It really did.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
next thing you know, it's like writing Shakespeare.
And she's talking about it like, yeah, man, that's just something you had to do. And I'm like, you're telling a whole NPR audience about this. This is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, you brought up dolphins. So that's one of the stories that came to mind.
I seem to remember it was, I imagine it was in that story as well. It'd be weird if I heard two separate weird dolphin stories, but how they were also using tools. Like they discovered dolphins were using tools like dropping, like if I remember right, they drop like a whole bunch of dolphins would drop a boulder onto some sort of enemy.
Yeah.
Fish.
Dolphins are fucking smart.
Yeah. And
I mean, why are we trying to make them smarter is what I'm wondering. Because if they can figure out how to come on land, we're probably all fucked.
Right. Yeah. Eventually they'll just come up with robotic legs that they've made out of like stones.
The key is they'll have figured out how to do it without electricity.
Right. Yeah.
Can't really use that underwater.
Yeah. They've perfected clean energy. Yeah. And they won't tell us because they're dicks.
Right. Of course. We have to make them all have orgasms in order to get that information.
You have to masturbate them to get them to give us clean energy. I'd do it. I'd sign up.
Okay.
You know, for clean it's for the world.
Would you masturbate? Would you manually masturbate like a man for clean energy?
Like Al Gore.
Yeah.
If that was how we saved the world.
Right.
Would I jerk off a dude to save the world? Yeah, I would jerk off a dude.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you weren't like weirdly into jerking off male dolphins, but you have the thing against
but I wouldn't do it with
men.
I mean, I honestly, maybe this is just my religious upbringing, but I would probably jerk off a dolphin before I jerk off a dude.
That seems worse than the Bible. Doesn't it? Aren't you not supposed to lay with beasts?
Well, you're not laying with them. Now, here's the interesting question. Because you're not, as a man, you're not supposed to spill your seed.
Can you spill another man's seed?
Because God will possibly kill you. Right. Yeah, but that's the thing is like, if for whatever reason you're in a situation where you have to jerk off a dude to save a life or something like that, so it's not like gay.
No, it is totally still gay.
Right. Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah, which is totally fine.
Be okay with that.
Yeah, but according to the Bible, it's not okay. But if you're in a situation like that, like, can you jerk off the dude? Like, is the seed being spilt his fault or your fault? You know, is God going to kill the dude or you? Yeah. You know.
Well, if you listen to Catholics, it's both of your faults.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you're not supposed to, come outside of a female.
It's a weird predicament.
And historically, the person giving the hand job gets in more trouble because it always seems to be the woman in trouble for doing that stuff. And the man is just like, oh yeah, he's just trying to get
boys will be boys.
Yeah. So the giver would definitely be in trouble.
Right.
The receiver, I don't know. They might. Now,
what if you're getting jerked off by a dolphin though?
They don't have hands.
But they are very smart.
But they don't have hands. So it would be like a blowjob or a blowhole job.
Blowhole job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Hole's a hole.
Hole's a hole. Any hole do.
Any hole in a storm.
Is that the saying?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. Anyway, so Jonah. We're talking about Jonah.
Okay. Is this a whole book?
Yeah.
Jonah has his own actual whole book. It's not just like a story in one of the books.
Nope.
Okay.
He does, and we'll get into this in a second. He does show up in another place in the Bible, but no, this is his whole book. It's extremely short. It's only 4 chapters, which I think Ruth was also 4 chapters. This was a shorter book, though.
Because her chapters were long.
Comparatively. Yeah. It took less than 8 minutes of actual recordings to read the whole thing.
Oh,
so
cool.
That's how short this is. This might be a very short episode because of that.
I think our listeners will appreciate the break. Instead of having like an hour and a half long podcast, maybe a hearty 45-minute one.
Right. I'm sure we'll find ways of filling up that time,
Definitely.
though, nonetheless.
I mean, we already did.
Yeah. Just talking about the morality of jerking off dolphins. There's always that old standby to go back to if we need to fill some time. Wikipedia says the prophet Jonah is mentioned in 2 Kings 14:25, which places Jonah's life during the reign of Jeroboam II. So that's 786 to 746 BC. But the book of Jonah itself does not mention a king or any other details that would give the text a firm date. Majority of scholars date the book much later to the post-exilic period, sometime between the late 5th to early 4th century BC, perhaps along with the book of Ruth, as a counter to the emphasis on racial purity in the time of Ezra. You remember that when we were talking about Ruth, how it was believed to be a counter narrative to or a protest.
Was a dirty Moabite.
Yes. Yep. Oh my God. You remembered that.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks
done.
for the confidence.
Well done. You purposefully forget a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, my brain doesn't need that space used up by that.
Yeah. But yeah, so Ezra was a raging atheist. No, not a raging atheist, a raging racist.
Oh, okay.
An aging racist. That's the opposite of a raging atheist.
An aging racist. Jonah was an aging racist. Is that what you just said?
No, Ezra.
Okay.
Ezra.
Sorry.
So in that post-exilic time period, that was the guy that was saying, leave your wives if they're like foreigners.
Now
and
that
stuff
we
like
can
and
come
your
back
kids.
to Israel.
Yep.
It wasn't called Israel.
Jerusalem and stuff. Yep.
If you've set up with the local women during that time to just leave them there.
Just leave them and the kids.
Because they're mudbloods.
Right. Exactly. Yep. He was a big racist. So this along with Ruth, they think was probably a protest writing, essentially. An even later date is sometimes proposed, with Catherine Dell arguing for the Hellenistic period, 332 to 167 BC. So that's what Wikipedia says about
the Hellenistic period, like the Helen of Troy. Hellenistic?
Yeah.
This is Old Testament book.
Yes, Old Testament.
I feel silly asking you
if
those
it's BC,
questions.
then
that's kind of what I went with, and also Kings.
A lot of the story is about an ancient city called Nineveh. This was the capital of the Assyrian Empire, and for a few decades, it was the largest city in the world. The ruins are near the modern-day city of Mosul in northern Iraq. I haven't done a deep dive into this, but apparently Jonah is involved in conflicting prophecies, which is interesting. So Jonah is a prophet.
Okay.
In 2 Kings 4, chapter 4, verses 23 through 25, it talks about Jeroboam II, who was the king of the northern kingdom of Israel. And Jonah is mentioned prophesying in favor of Jeroboam. But Amos, another prophet, in his own book,
famous Amos,
prophesizes against Jeroboam in Amos 6:13 through 14.
Okay.
Makes you wonder if they're both prophets, they're both speaking for God, one speaking in favor of this guy, one speaking against the guy.
It's almost like prophets aren't actual things.
Yeah.
You know, Nostradamus used to like stare into bowls of mercury to get his prophecies, and it's like, well, you just have mercury poisoning.
Right. He used to stare into them before he started drinking them. Yeah. And I ran so far away.
Are you going to put music under that again like you did the other one?
I don't know.
Make you sound all fancy?
I don't know.
Okay.
Why?
I was just asking a question.
Oh, okay.
Don't have to get all defensive.
Because it sucked last time.
No.
So there's another city that keeps getting talked about. The pronunciation is a little weird, and I'm sure you'll catch it. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai, saying, "Go at once to Nineveh, the great city, and cry out against it, for their wickedness has come up before me." But Jonah set out to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid his fare and went on board to go with them to Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord.
Dude, why do they keep saying the name over and over and over again?
Which one?
Tarshish?
Tarshish.
There's
no way to say that.
A lisp.
Yeah, there's no way of saying that without sounding drunk.
Tarshish?
Yeah.
Is
Tarshish.
Did you look up the pronunciation? That's how you pronounce it?
According to Christian people, yeah.
Tarshish.
Tarshish. Tarshish.
Oh.
Just need to go down to Tarshish.
I'm Carol Channing.
And I like to vacation in Tarshish.
There's a joke for the over 50 crowd.
So Jonah gets the command from God to tell Nineveh that they're evil. We have no idea what about Nineveh is evil, or if something is going to happen to Nineveh because of their evilness. And there's no indication why Jonah is running from God.
Right. So God tells him to go to Nineveh, tell a whole city.
Yeah.
Which you said one of the biggest cities? Is that
for a few decades, it was the biggest city in the world.
So one man
is
going to go to a city and tell them they're evil.
Right.
The whole city.
Right.
Well, that's why he's running. He's not running from God. He doesn't want to tell a whole city that they're evil, especially if they are.
That's a good point, too. Yeah. Yeah. So he hops on a boat to Tarshish. But the Lord hurled a great wind upon the sea, and such a mighty storm came upon the sea that the ship threatened to break up. Then the sailors were afraid, and each cried out to his God. They threw the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten it for them. Jonah, meanwhile, had gone down into the hold of the ship and had lain down and was fast asleep. The captain came and said to him, "What are you doing sound asleep? Get up, call on your God. Perhaps the God will spare us a thought so that we do not perish." The sailors said to one another, "Come, let us cast lots, so that we may know on whose account this calamity has come upon us." So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. Then they said to him, "Tell us why this calamity has come upon us. What is your occupation? Where do you come from? What is your country? And of what people are you?" "I am Hebrew," he said. "I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land." Then the men were even more afraid and said to him, "What is this that you have done?" For the men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of the Lord, because he had told them so. Because he had told them so. Yeah, I know. It's just lazy writing.
They knew he was running from the presence of the Lord because he told them he was running from the presence of the Lord.
I know. The writing in this is not great.
It was really funny to me when you started talking about him being downstairs sleeping.
Yeah.
And I was like, that motherfucker, how can he be sleeping through this? And then instantly, the very next thing you said was the captain came down and pretty much was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought
how can you sleep through this?
Yeah. So they're like all freaked out.
Can you remind me what casting lots again is, please?
Yeah. So basically, it's like rolling dice or something like that. Drawing straws or something like that.
So they drew straws to find out whose fault the storm was?
Yeah. And it worked.
And, well, yes. Conveniently in this written story, it worked out very well.
What's interesting to me, though, is like if you are somebody who believes that the Bible is perfect and is all true and everything, then the Bible tells you that you're not supposed to cast lots and stuff. Like it's witchcraft, right?
Oh,
There's some commandments somewhere about
Okay.
that, but it seems to work.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's
They
the
do
thing.
it a lot in the Bible for
Yeah.
something that's not allowed.
The fucking disciples did it
Right.
on once or twice. I can't remember
Yeah.
exactly what the situation was,
It
but
seems like it'd be a very good way to, like, instead of doing like a lineup, like a police lineup, where
Yeah.
you have the witness, you put a bunch of people and everybody knows. I don't know why I'm explaining what a police lineup is. Everybody knows what it is.
Yeah.
Just have a bunch of them just draw straws, and whoever is the shortest one obviously is the one who did it.
Right. Or you do the updated version of this and use the Holy Spirit board.
Ah, yes, and
'Cause
have
that's
Jesus tell you,
Yeah. It's kind of basically what it is,
right. So everyone's pissed at Jonah because he hasn't asked God to stop. Actually,
They're pissed because he's the reason
right.
why God is doing this.
Yes,
Yeah.
because listen, what kind of man thinks they can run from an omnipresent being?
Yep. And that's the big thing with Jonah is
This guy sounds stupid.
Yeah. I mean, he even says that I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. And it's like, well, yeah,
what qualifies one to become a prophet back then?
I don't know.
I
think it's poetry. I think it's actually poetry. If you write poetry, you were a prophet.
I think the standards feel real low. Or your intelligence has to be low enough that when you say something that sounds intelligent and meaningful, it must be prophecy, because everything else you say is stupid.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
really, I bet it's like if you just predicted one thing ever, then they're like, oh, you're a prophet.
And well, see, my theory is backed up by the film Dogma.
Oh, of course.
In which Jay and Silent Bob are the prophets.
Yes.
And Jay is a complete moron.
Yeah.
But he's the prophet for some reason. And I think it's because he's a complete moron.
Right.
You have to be, it seems, perhaps.
Or you just have to be stoners,
Yeah. Yeah.
I can totally see Jonah being a stoner.
Oh, that would explain him sleeping through a storm.
Right. Yeah.
In a boat.
Yeah. Then they said to him, "What shall we do to you that the sea may quiet down for us?" For the sea was growing more and more tempestuous. He said to them, "Pick me up and throw me into the sea. Then the sea will quiet down for you. For I know it is because of me that this great storm has come upon you." Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to bring the ship back to land, but they could not, for the sea grew more and more stormy against them. Then they cried out to the Lord, "Please, O Lord, we pray, do not let us perish on account of this man's life. Do not make us guilty of innocent blood, for you, O Lord, have done as it pleased you." So they picked Jonah up and threw him into the sea, and the sea ceased from its raging. Then the men feared the Lord even more, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows. But the Lord provided a large fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. So it was funny when I was reading this, because immediately I got the visual of them throwing Jonah overboard, and then like the storm all dies down, but he's just left floating there next to the boat, and they're just watching him, and he's just watching them, and he starts getting up into the boat, and the storm starts up again.
How big is, getting into the boat, how big is this boat?
I don't know. It could be a larger boat,
If he was down inside the boat, then it certainly is a larger boat.
Right.
He's not just going to climb back in, you silly man. Nor do people.
I don't know. I didn't know boats had basements.
If he knew he was the problem, why did they have to throw him in? Why couldn't he just hopped in himself?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question.
Because then because one of the things they were asking God for was not to make them do that, because they didn't want to murder a dude in the name of the Lord.
Yeah.
That feeling went away from a lot of people after a couple of years.
Yeah.
Murder people in the name of the Lord all the time now.
Yeah.
solution to that problem isn't let's pray harder to God. The solution to that problem is, bitch, get off this boat.
Right. Yeah.
Go. Yeah. Why do I have to put an effort in? You've been sleeping this whole time. You have lots of energy. Go on over. We've been rowing. A boat, a big boat, a boat with a basement.
Now I'm just picturing him trying to throw himself over, and he just keeps chickening out at the last minute. Like he's gonna, all right, I'm going to do it. Oh, no. Oh, no.
So he does have a precedence for chicken shittery.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah.
So that could be true.
Yeah. One Christian interpretation I saw of this too is that this is a selfish act. Like he's not being, you could easily construe this as him being selfless and saying, kill me and you'll be safe, But they point out that this is a selfish act because he's still like, it's the ultimate way of running from God.
Right.
Is just saying, I would rather die than go to Nineveh,
Yeah. Well, listen, dying is the fastest way to get a face-to-face with God, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know that you're running. And that interpretation makes it sound like they think when you die, you're just dead.
This is pre-Jesus. So in theory, he would end up in Sheol.
Oh, okay. That's where,
Yeah.
Right.
According to Jewish tradition.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And there was no separation between anybody in Sheol. Everyone just went and stood in the dark. Robots from Westworld.
Right, exactly. A fishy poem. So chapter 2, almost the whole thing is just a poem.
Ooh.
We're just going to play it straight through.
Okay.
Then Jonah prayed to the Lord his God from the belly of the fish, saying, I called to the Lord out of my distress, and he answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice. You cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the flood surrounded me. All your waves and your billows passed over me. Then I said, I am driven away from your sight. How shall I look again upon your holy temple? The waters closed in over me. The deep surrounded me. Weeds were wrapped around my head at the roots of the mountains. I went down to the land whose bars closed upon me forever. Yet you brought my life up from the pit, O Lord my God. As my life was ebbing away, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came to you, into your holy temple. Those who worship vain idols forsake their true loyalty, but I, with the voice of thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed, I will pay. Deliverance belongs to the Lord. Then the Lord spoke to the fish, and it vomited Jonah out onto the dry land.
Who is Jonah talking to? God?
God.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a prayer to God from the belly of the fish.
It's not a prayer. He's just telling God what happened, which God already knows.
Right. Yeah, because he's not like, one could interpret that as like a prayer for forgiveness, but he's not actually asking for forgiveness. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He's not saying
and he doesn't
sorry
need to ask
for
to be saved because that already happened. He's literally just recounting exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Back to God.
Yeah.
And God's like, I was there.
Well, there's a couple things where it's like, I called on the Lord in my distress, and he answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice. So, like, you could take that as an interpretation of him saying, like,
he felt he was.
He's asking God to hear him from the belly of Sheol, which is the fish in this case for him. Like as if that's hell for him, right? Being in the belly of this fish.
Being in the belly of the fish that God sent to save him from drowning?
Yeah.
God sent the fish.
Yeah. Yeah. The fish is meant to transport him, ultimately.
I understand what the purpose of the fish is. Does he?
I don't know. See, that's the thing. You don't really know. Is Jonah thinking God's going to kill him by having him digested by this fish? Right. Or does Jonah actually realize, like, oh, I'm going to Nineveh?
Yeah. Because again, the whole thing just feels like this is what happened sort of poem, which we had already watched and heard and knew what happened. We didn't need his own fucking lyrical take on it.
Right.
I kept trying to imagine like that poem over like a rap beat to see if I could make it better, and it did not.
No. I mean, and it's translated obviously and stuff. So maybe in the original Hebrew, it's more funky.
But so I wonder if like he even realized that the fish was sent to save him, or if he just thought he got ate by a fish.
And we never really get that.
Ate by a fish. So at the end of that poem, the fish spits him out.
Vomits him onto dry land.
Wait. He spends. Okay. Wait. Was that the whole chapter?
Yeah.
So there's 4 chapters. That was the second chapter.
Yes.
And he only spent that chapter in the fish.
Right. But it told us in the previous chapter that he was in the fish for 3 days and 3 nights.
Right. Okay.
So it was 3 days and 3 nights.
I just expected there to be more
fish
inside fish stuff.
Yeah. Nope.
Because it seems like to be like.
Because you're hoping for Pinocchio.
Yes.
You're hoping for Pinocchio.
You're hoping for Pinocchio.
And you don't get it.
No.
Yeah.
But like the imagery that you get about this story, not being somebody who ever heard the actual story, is always just a dude sitting in a fucking fish.
Yeah.
Which I guess.
So much of that is from Pinocchio. I swear to God, it's from watching that cartoon. You get it so conflated in your head.
I mean like actual imagery, like statues and pictures and stuff of this story. Like there's a famous one of like it's not famous, but like there's always, I just remember seeing like a lot of blown glass figures of like a whale, because let's face it, it's a fucking whale. Yeah. A whale with just a little dude sitting on the inside of him. And I guess he would have been there for 3 days and 3 nights. So but
how big was his nose?
I'm telling you, it was about Jonah.
Okay.
It wasn't a fucking Pinocchio statue. I feel so let down by this story already, and we're only halfway through it, because like, does he talk about? Does he tell? Do we hear any more?
The fish is never coming up again.
What the fuck? I want to know what he did for 3 days inside a fucking fish.
I know, right? Like really, all we get is the poem prayer.
This is terrible. This is one of the stories that as a non-Christian I actually knew about.
Yeah.
Because
you thought you knew about.
Well, yeah. But I knew of its existence. Because people use it as the fucking allegory all the time.
Right.
Some bullshit. It's like, it's always something that's brought up. It was like Jonah inside the fish. And it's like, were you? Because you don't know what he actually did inside that fucking fish.
I think when people bring it up, I think the moral of it is always that, if this is what God wants you to do, there's nothing you can do to stop it, is the idea.
Yeah.
I know, except, there's no way to say there's any truth to that.
Demand a better version of the story.
Yeah.
And
it's Pinocchio.
I get
it. And that story is so much better than this one.
Listen, there's a cartoon that I used to watch with Connor called The Misadventures of Flapjack, I think is what it was called. And they actually lived inside of a whale. So I'll just go back.
There you go. That's a better story.
That.
Yeah.
And she talked to them. And it
the
was
whale?
Yes.
Yeah.
She had a whole character.
Apparently this whale, this fish, only talks to the Lord. That's one thing I thought was interesting, that the Lord spoke to the fish and told it to vomit.
To vomit it out. So is he covered in like...
Turns out that God is Dr. Dolittle.
Like stomach juices, fish stomach juices. So
probably.
All right, I guess. Well, here's the other thing then, because we don't know about what happened to him in there in 3 days. So did the fish not eat anything else that entire time? Was he getting digested by the fish?
Right. Well, also, it's not like there's 3 days worth of air in a fish.
Right.
Yeah. Like, so yeah, I did see something I didn't.
If it's a whale, though, they do go up and bring in new air and stuff. That's the thing. Like, it has to be a whale.
Yeah. It doesn't say a whale, though. It says a big fish.
There's no other big fish.
A whale isn't actually a fish.
I know that.
It's a mammal.
I know. That's why they have to go up and get fresh air.
Right.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask our listeners to start sending us fish that this could be other than a whale.
Right.
I'm not going to do any research on this. I don't want to look at a bunch of pictures
So
of fish.
what's funny though is when I was
Did
going
you
through
do
the
it?
when I was going through the Wikipedia, one thing I came across, it was different high up folks within the early church sending letters to each other about this story and like, could it actually be true?
Oh,
Is it possible for this
for
to
a
happen
human
to a
to live
fish?
in a fish?
Yeah. And what was funny was apparently a bunch of Christians were getting mocked about it. Even though it's a Jewish story, you know, the Christians are the ones that were getting, I mean, Jewish people, let's be honest, were probably also getting mocked because Jewish people always get the shaft and when it comes to stuff like that. But Christians were like the high ups in the early church were trying to come up with some way of making this more believable.
Right.
And stuff.
They hired like,
that's probably when they
church
started saying it
scientists.
was a whale.
Yeah. That's funny. I wonder what sort of like, what's an insult you could hurl at somebody who believes that you can live inside a fish for 3 days.
What's an insult?
Yeah. Like if you were going to insult somebody because they believed in this story.
Hey, fish boy? I don't know.
I can live inside a fish.
What's funny too is like that's the thing that
right.
Like there's all the stuff about Jesus too.
Yeah. Right.
Are you tired of rideshare services like Uber and Lyft taking you exactly where you wanted to go?
There has to be a way for me to get where God wants me, no matter how much I try to resist.
Now there is, with Jonah Cab.
That sounds amazing. How does it work?
First, you get on a boat headed to wherever you would like to go.
Ooh, I'm headed for Ireland.
So you think. Next, you get thrown overboard by the sailors.
Wait, why do we need this stuff?
Then a fish comes by and swallows you whole.
A fish? Like a whale?
I said a fish, and I mean a fish. But then, after just 3 days, the fish vomits you wherever God wants you to be, as long as that happens to be on a seashore.
3 days? How will I breathe?
Okay, fine. It's a whale and there's a blowhole. Happy?
Does that mean I'll be covered in precious ambergris?
It's as convenient as flying Spirit Airlines.
Use promo code BSFA at checkout to get 10% more precious ambergris.
Jonah Cab is only available in the continental United States, the only country that thinks Jonah got out of the whale by setting his nose on fire. A perfect and unchanging God, the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time, saying, "Get up, go to Nineveh, that great city, and proclaim to it the message that I tell you." So Jonah set out and went to Nineveh, according to the word of the Lord. Now Nineveh was an exceedingly large city, a 3 days' walk across. Jonah began to go into the city, going a day's walk. And he cried out, 40 days more, and Nineveh shall be overthrown. And the people of Nineveh believed God. They proclaimed a fast, and everyone, great and small, put on sackcloth. When the news reached the king of Nineveh, he rose from his throne, removed his robe, covered himself in sackcloth, and sat in ashes. So yeah, I couldn't help. Cinderella?
Yeah, just like Cinderella.
Just like,
yeah, she used to sleep in the ashes.
Oh, I don't remember her sleeping in the ashes.
Cinderella.
I thought she was called Cinderella because she cleaned the fireplaces.
No, she slept there too.
Oh, that's a weird place to sleep.
Yeah, when your parent, your stepmother and your stepsisters are abusive to you, of course it's a terrible place to
Why did they call her emphysema?
It wasn't a lit fire.
I imagine inhaling ashes, though, is going to give you some respiratory issues. Right? Oh, there you go.
There you
go.
Anyway.
Really motivates her to get it clean.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought it was a funny idea of him just plopping down in
a pile of ashes.
Was he wearing pants?
Took it on full open He was fully open when he squatted on those.
I know. I was picturing him like in one of those long robes, like a long sackcloth robe.
Do you remember
and he just hikes it up and sits down.
I don't know how many people watch this show, but Josh and I are quite fond of the show Taskmaster.
Yes.
And there was the one episode where the woman had Alex sit on a cake.
Yeah.
And he says, I was fully open.
I was fully open. Yeah. I can't remember what it was that was on the cake. There was like,
I think it was just frosting.
No, there's things like some like donut holes or something like that.
Some sort of decoration
on the cake, and he was saying how there's less afterwards. He was like, everyone should try it once.
Yeah. That's what that reminded me of. But okay, so he goes. So what the fuck was he scared of then? It seemed to go really well for him, considering, because he basically, I mean, I guess he wasn't shouting "You all are evil." He was just basically like, somebody's gonna overthrow the kingdom. Is that what it?
Oh, Nineveh shall be overthrown. Yes.
Yeah. So like a new king, or like
we don't get any details.
God is gonna raise it and do like a whole Sodom and Gomorrah thing.
Yeah. Also, God never told them that.
Oh, that is true. Yeah.
It never came up.
Yeah. He just told them to tell them they were evil.
Yeah. And he's not mentioning God at all.
No.
With that.
But
or that they're evil.
They must know. I mean, they have to know who he is or something, right? Because they just all believe this fucking crazy guy who rolls up, probably smelling like fish, vomit.
Yeah.
Walking through his streets. If somebody
well, that's why they believe him.
If somebody walked by our house smelling of fish and was like, Your house
will be overthrown
in 40 days. I would be like, boop, 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 boop. Hi, is this the non-emergency line for the police department?
Because I need the emergency line.
There's a mental health crisis happening in front of my house.
Pretty sure this guy got thrown up by a fish.
But instead, I mean, literally, he just walked into. Like, he's still covered in fish vomit.
Right.
He's just rolling through town, and everyone's like, "Oh, okay." What?
Everybody believes him. Even the king, just hearing about it, the king believes him.
Opens his asshole up to some ashes.
Yeah. Gets it all up in that ashole.
Not wearing underwear back then. That wasn't a thing.
No.
Sorry, I skipped right over it, but that was good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I have to stop and give you props for that.
Then he had a proclamation made in Nineveh. By the decree of the king and his nobles, no human or animal, no herd or flock shall taste anything. They shall not feed, nor shall they drink water. Humans and animals shall be covered with sackcloth, and they shall cry mightily to God. All shall turn from their evil ways and from the violence that is in their hands. Who knows? God may relent and change his mind. He may turn from his fierce anger so that we do not perish. When God saw what they did, how they turned from their evil ways, God changed his mind about the calamity that he had said he would bring upon them, and he did not do it. Yeah.
Oh,
and he was definitely going to, though.
Yes, he loves a good citywide starvation.
Yeah.
Really gets him going.
Yeah. Those poor animals.
I know. They didn't fucking do anything. I was sitting here thinking it sounds like a great place to be an atheist, because everybody else is going to be like starving and weak, and you're sitting there like, you people are crazy.
Right.
And like eating and having a good old time and like punching people out.
Your animals are all happy, not being covered in sackcloth.
Yeah. It's a one of many instances where I'm like, this is the God that you want to believe in, the one that where the solution to the problem is everybody just starve and dehydrate themselves.
Yeah.
And all of their food that they'll end up eating, probably not.
Again, though, this like we don't know what they were doing that was evil, you know?
Right.
And so now
they did say violence. There was the
like, what are they just killing each other? Like,
I mean, one can only assume there's a lot of rape and killing going on.
Maybe.
I mean, he razed Sodom and Gomorrah to the ground.
Yeah.
And half of that just sounded like they were having a good old time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And he did not like that.
Right. So yeah, it's a weird thing where like, yeah, we get absolutely no indication of what Nineveh
What
was
pissed
really
him
doing
off.
wrong. We see that they are doing all this stuff like the fasting and the sackclothing, but they don't like no indication of like what they're doing differently to in actual life.
Oh,
right?
I mean, it sounds like they're doing nothing.
Right. They're
I mean, if
just
you can't
doing
eat
this.
or drink,
Yeah, but then what do they do like after the 40 days?
they're gonna go. It's gonna go exactly back to the way things were.
Right. You know what's interesting that I'm just now thinking of, and it would be interesting to dig into this, but I'm not going to. Is Nineveh is in modern day Mosul, Iraq, or it's like right by there. So in a Muslim area, although this is pre-Islam, as I understand it. I was just thinking because it's 40 days, and that's if I remember correctly, Ramadan is 40 days of fasting.
Oh,
And I kind of wonder if like if this is it, maybe Ramadan predates
isn't
Islam
the Quran
itself.
have a similar source to the Torah though?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it branches off from you remember.
Yeah, the very beginning. That whole
Isaac
family.
and his brother is where it branched
Right.
off. Yeah, Ishmael.
So I mean,
Isaac and Ishmael.
I don't know anything about Ramadan other than you can only eat at night.
Yeah.
And then I think it's only certain things until the end of the thing.
But like I said, I wonder if Ramadan like that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe they have a story similar
Yeah.
to that in the Quran.
Maybe. And also that if the 40 days of fasting, doing that on a regular basis, maybe that predates Islam itself.
Right. Right.
Um,
So they just keep doing that to appease God and show what's the word I'm trying to think of? Show, not forgiveness, show
penance?
Yeah.
Penitence?
No, penance.
Penance?
Penance.
They just want to show their penance.
Penance. You were right. It's
For
penance.
40 days, we're going to fast to show God our penance.
I mean, there's a whole chapter about men's penises and the skin on them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not outside of the realm of possibility.
Right. So yeah, and then one last thing to wrap this story up is if God is perfect and all-knowing, then how can God possibly change their mind?
Oh, yeah. How why did God change their mind about the city?
Right.
Because he should have known that they were going to do that.
Right. Really, ultimately. Yeah, cuz
why would any of us do anything then, Josh, though?
What do you mean?
Why would I pray to God? God should know what I want.
Yeah, that's a very good question.
So if
a Christian will tell you that you pray to change yourself, not to change God. But what the fuck does that mean?
Well, why does talking to God have to be the thing that does that?
Right. Why can't you just talk to yourself?
Why can't it just be fucking therapy?
Yeah.
I mean,
anything.
there is, listen, I think I've said this before. There is something about speaking things that are troubling you out loud.
Yeah.
Or I guess people don't always pray out loud. From the movies, everyone's always got their little.
It could even be out loud in your head.
Yes. Right.
Like it could be. Yeah.
And relieving that burden of just saying things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like a placebo effect benefit of prayer. But if you're right and God is supposed to be all knowing, all seeing, all powerful, he's just a bastard. He knew he wasn't gonna have to raise the city to the ground or whatever the fuck was gonna happen after 40 days, I guess, right? He would have known that ahead of time.
In theory, he would, yeah. But
or he would have known that. I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like just because he knows the effects of something doesn't mean that they don't have to do it. It's like a parent. Okay, you've never raised a small child, right? So I don't know if you'll even like think about it this way, but like when you're trying to get a kid to learn how to do something. Let's take cleaning your room for an example. Parents will often use the threat of, if you don't clean up your room, I am going to throw all of your shit away. And sometimes they'll go as far as like bagging it all up and then taking it downstairs. Or if you're my parents, you actually throw it in the garbage and you never see it again. But most parents know they're not going to actually throw that stuff away. A, they bought it, so that would be stupid. And B, they know that threats are a good way to get people to do things. So it may not necessarily be that God's mind was changed. He just had to threaten this to get them to change. And he was never actually planning on doing anything.
Right. Except that the perfect Bible says that God changed his mind.
Mhm. Right.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
God changed his mind about the calamity that he had said he would bring upon them, and he did not do it.
Right.
Yeah. So
it's just so crazy to me that there have ever been people who consider this book perfect.
Yeah.
Because to me that sounds like men putting taking their own personalities and processes and thoughts and applying them to this omniscient, omnipresent.
Yes, you're right about both.
Being.
Yeah.
Which maybe it's just that humans can't understand the concept of that and what that would be like, because none of us are that.
Yeah, it seems like the writers of this never really thought through
Right.
the implications of being all powerful. Well, also, that's also a big indicator that none of them actually thought that was
Right.
the case about God.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like this is what the Christian church has introduced to God. I think
perfectionism,
the
perfect
all powerful,
perfect
all knowing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like if you read the Old Testament, if you read Genesis and stuff like that, like we've gone through, it's only about Israel.
Right.
He is not the God of the world.
Right.
Like Christians have made him out to be.
True. True.
So it's very different for in the Old Testament, I think, than you get in the New Testament.
Well, and so yes, there were angels in the Old Testament, right?
Yes.
But
Balaam.
But Lucifer wasn't introduced in the Old Testament, or was
Yes.
he?
Yep.
He was?
So like, because we read Job, that was in the Old Testament.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Well, that was, and let's be clear, that was Satan.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
not necessarily Lucifer. You know, just that again, that's another thing that we've decided that these two characters are the same.
Right.
You know.
Well, but I guess the point I was going is the whole story about Satan, Lucifer, the morning star or whatever, it was that he opposed God.
Yes.
Which tells me that there were other angels that were with him, right? Like,
yeah, it was the idea is that it was Lucifer, and Lucifer oversaw, I think, a third of the angels, and so a third of the angels fell.
And then the ones that didn't take a side, as we learned also from Dogma.
Yeah, I don't think that was in the Bible, but yeah.
So the idea of a perfect God, right? If he was perfect, then a third of his workforce wouldn't have been rebelling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean, though?
Yeah, they went on strike.
And yes, they've been demonized, right? Because they became demons.
God is still not paying $15 an hour, by the way.
But you know, like it or not, they had a problem with his management.
I'm sorry. Did you say they demonized instead of unionized?
No, they've been demonized.
Oh.
In the Bible.
Oh, I for some reason I heard that as like instead of like they didn't unionize, they demonized.
No. Their act has been demonized.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Both figuratively and literally.
Yeah.
Actually, not literally.
Well, no.
Literally.
Littering the Bible.
But like if you really like actually think about it, whether you think that they're evil or not, or believe in any of this at all, if a third of your people have an issue with you, something's wrong somewhere. And if a third of the angels disagree, then why is it expected that all humans think that God is perfect?
I know.
Why? Why, church?
Why? They don't even, because angels don't even need faith.
No.
They know for a fact
they
God
know.
exists.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Anyway.
Anywho.
This story was a real letdown.
Yeah. Well, we're not done yet.
Oh, okay. I thought we were at the end of it.
No, not yet. God, is it? I'd like to speak to your manager. Jonah is pissed Nineveh isn't being destroyed. And we get this. But this was very displeasing to Jonah, and he became angry. He prayed to the Lord and said, "O Lord, is this not what I said while I was still in my own country? That this is why I fled to Tarshish in the beginning? For I knew that you are a gracious and merciful God, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love, and relenting from punishment. And now, O Lord, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live." And the Lord said, "Is it right for you to be angry?" Then Jonah went out of the city and sat down east of the city and made a booth for himself there. He sat under it in the shade, waiting to see what would become of the city. Yeah, so basically the running and the fish was just because he hates Nineveh. Like all that stuff, like him trying to not go there is just because he hates this city.
Well, no, what it sounded like to me was he knew that God wasn't going to actually do anything.
Yeah.
So he felt like it was a waste of his time.
Yeah.
And he was basically like, it was a fucking waste of my time because you're doing exactly what I knew you were going to do and not actually destroy anything.
Right.
So why did I have
Starting
to go
think
there?
you're not even there.
Why did I even have to go there?
Yeah.
Why you just fucking kill me?
Yeah.
Which is a real extreme sort of like fit to throw. Like, you're not going to destroy this entire city? Well, you might as well kill me then.
Right. Yeah.
And then you said he went to the edge of the city and built himself a booth.
A booth? Yeah.
Which is probably not the same thing as the booth I'm picturing.
No.
But I am picturing him building himself like a booth at
a
McDonald's
con.
and then sitting underneath it.
You're thinking of like a
like a booth that when you go to a restaurant, you're like, you want a table or a booth?
I was thinking of like at Comic-Con. Built himself a booth and he's just sitting there as people are walking by. He's got a sign that says Jonah. That's
Pictures
all.
$5.
Yeah.
Picture and autograph $10.
Right. All these people very angrily walking by in sackcloth. Lord God appointed a bush and made it come up over Jonah to give shade over his head to save him from his discomfort. So Jonah was very happy about the bush. But when dawn came up the next day, God appointed a worm that attacked the bush so that it withered. When the sun rose, God prepared a sultry east wind, and the sun beat down on the head of Jonah so that he was faint and asked that he might die. He said, "It is better for me to die than to live." But God said to Jonah, "Is it right for you to be angry about the bush?" And he said, "Yes, angry enough to die." Then the Lord said, "You are concerned about the bush, for which you did not labor, and which you did not grow, came into being in a night and perished in a night. And should I not be concerned about Nineveh, that great city, in which there are more than 120,000 persons who do not know their right hand from their left, and also many animals?" And that's how it ends.
That's it? That's the end of it?
What a stupid ending.
Oh my gosh. Wow. All right. So so essentially Jonah's a child throwing a fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he sits down. Do you know what a fucking booth is? Like, did you look up?
I think I saw another translation called it a shelter.
Okay.
Set himself up a shelter.
So God saw that
kind of like Sheds by Peter.
Sheds by Peter. So God saw that his shelter was probably really shitty. And
obviously it wasn't doing enough. That's true. Because obviously it wasn't doing enough.
Yes. Grew a bush overnight.
Yeah.
Which is a talent, I guess.
Yeah.
And
many people have said God is quite talented.
Yeah. But then introduced a worm to destroy the bush.
Yeah.
Also overnight. So Jonah got really excited about the idea of being shaded and then pissed off because then there was no more shade.
Right.
And then just sat there and let the sun beat down on him.
Yep.
Instead of, I don't know, moving.
Right. Yeah.
He put himself there.
Yeah.
God didn't like break
He's a real
his legs.
Dante.
He is a real Dante.
Another Clerks
And we don't mean
reference.
Dante's Inferno.
Yeah, he is just complaining about something he didn't make.
Right.
And, like he had nothing to do with, yeah.
That it's actually a great sort of
Moral.
Yeah. Like, don't be mad about something to which you added nothing to.
Right.
And then God saying, like, obviously I had a hand in the creation of this city and the people in it. Why wouldn't I be interested in what happens to them? Right?
Yeah.
Whereas you should not. You had no hand in the city. You had no hand in this bush. You need to stop fucking complaining all the time.
Right.
You get to hang out with God constantly, so I don't know what your huge problem is.
Mm-hmm.
He sounds like a twat.
He's a real twat waffle.
I feel like I get the impression that all the prophets were twats.
I don't know. I don't really honestly. I never really formed any opinions around the prophets, but
I mean, we talked briefly about Joan of Arc last night.
Yeah, I don't think she's an official prophet.
She's
certainly not an Old Testament prophet.
No, but she was considered a prophet.
Yeah.
That's why everyone followed
the Catholics.
A crazy teenager into battle.
Yeah.
So the moral of the story is at the very end.
Yeah.
Is that what people should be getting from this? Because I've never heard that.
I think that kind of
prescribed to this story.
Yeah, I feel like most, like I said earlier, I think most Christians would take away the moral of if God wants you to do something, you're going to end up doing it,
right?
One way or another.
As opposed,
you have no autonomy over your life.
What a terrible thing to take from this story.
Yeah,
terrible. Because to me, the actual moral is like the. If you weren't involved in it, like maybe not have big feelings about it. I mean, we could take that to, or if you don't know enough about it, maybe you shouldn't be mad at it.
Right.
And we can apply that to today with all these fucking Christians and being pissed off about drag shows and gay culture and none of them having experienced it at all, being mad about something that they didn't have a hand in or know nothing about. To me, that's the better moral of this story is like, calm the fuck down. If you weren't involved in this and this hasn't directly affected you, although the bush does directly affect him, although he could get his fucking ass up and move.
But he didn't
he didn't put zero effort into it.
Yeah. And he's just complaining. It's like he's just complaining to complain.
Right. A very anti-Karen sort of story from the Bible.
Yeah.
I could see why that part of it was left out in the general knowledge portion of the story.
Jonah would not have worn masks during the pandemic.
He definitely would not have
He
worn
would have
masks.
been complaining about that the whole fucking
100%.
time.
Yes.
I can't breathe. Mr. lived in a fish for 3 days. Yeah.
Yep.
I was looking up stuff about like what the fuck is going on in this story, basically. And one thing that's big in this is satire. So everyone actually does the opposite of what you would think they would do throughout this. There's a prophet who runs from God. There's sailors who end up worshiping God.
Mm-hmm.
There's pagan Ninevites who end up believing in God, and a king who is humbled by the threat of God. Like they all do the exact opposite of what their stereotype would tell you they would do, or their archetype or whatever. Apparently, the point of the story isn't if Jonah is okay with God saving the Ninevites, but whether or not you, the reader, are okay with God loving your enemies is another Christian moral out of this.
Yeah.
Right. Is you need to be okay with God.
Again, you don't. Yeah, because it's not something Just because you don't like
There's
something.
another way of saying kind of what you were saying.
Yeah.
Or it's just shit writing and we don't have the complete text. That's one thing I'm kind of curious about.
It
the
is
fact
very short that it kind of just ends like that.
Ends. Yeah. Makes me wonder if there was more originally.
Perhaps. So when you think back to your youth, what do you remember about this story?
I don't know if I ever actually read this.
Like, but you didn't have like just even growing up not overly involved in religion. I knew the bits and pieces that everybody knows about this story.
I honestly think that was probably the same thing for me. Like I probably had heard the story in its completeness because it's so short, but it never like
it seems
sunk
like
in.
It's perfect to like translate into like a children's parable.
I mean, and obviously they do.
Yeah. It just I feel real disappointed in like the lack of meat in the center. And also real disappointed in that the actual, what I think to be like a pretty good moral at the end of this that's kind of like, I've never heard that part of it. So that's not the message.
Because everybody focuses on the fish.
People who are actually like into religion and have grown up with it and stuff like that. That's why I was trying to see if like maybe you knew more about it. But like I'm, perhaps people who are more into the scene of religion knows the end of it, right? And it's just the idiot atheists who people don't waste their time telling us the whole story.
Yeah. I mean, there's absolutely going to be some Christians out there, maybe even a lot of Christians out there, still probably not the majority of Christians out there. There's going to be some who know the story and understand the
I really wish more of them would.
But most Christians, I would bet you, if you took a survey, went down to Walmart and took a survey, that's the best place to find Christians. If you go down to Walmart and to ask random Christians
to tell you the story of Jonah,
you're just going to hear about the fish.
Right.
That's the only thing you'll hear about.
That's messed up.
Yeah.
It's messed up because, I think that there's just like with any stories, the Bible has some good stuff in it that people can use as like a guidebook for how to live their life well. Not a lot of it, but there's some. I mean, it's just like Aesop's fables, right? At the end of every Aesop's fables, there's like but they fucking spell it out for you.
You could get better advice though from a self-help book,
right?
From like a Tony Robbins book or something.
It's irritating to know that like that, because I think that that's a great thing to end on, and it's one of those things that I don't see in a lot of Christians, especially these days.
Yeah,
and when I say Christians, I mean the ones who are being especially loud these days, right?
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of Christians who are just being Christians, living their life, doing what they need to do, not all up in arms about a man putting on women's clothing or two women loving each other or anything like that. It really solidifies my atheism to hear stories like that I think this is how Christians should be living their lives then. If this is in the Bible, this is part of it.
Right.
This is something they should be following, and knowing that there's a lot of them that aren't.
Right.
So then what the fuck is the point?
No, because they're going to take away from it. Like, oh yeah, I should be going and telling people that they're evil so that they turn away from their evil ways.
Yeah, but a lot of them are doing more than that, Josh. Yeah. That's the problem.
I know. What I'm saying is that's their moral. Yeah. Like for a lot of those folks, the real problem folks, they're going to read that and be like, oh yeah, God wants me to tell all the evil Ninevites that they're evil.
Well, if they want to do it like Jonah did, then that's fine. Just
go get swallowed by a fish.
Swallowed by a fish. Walk down the center of town yelling crazy shit. I mean, that's what y'all used to do. You roll through town with your little signs and you just shout crazy shit and everyone would ignore you.
Yeah.
Now you're shooting at power stations and it's kind of too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
For everybody.
It's going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Soon they'll start saying shootings are freedom of speech.
Oh my. I think that you instantly pissed me off because I feel like it's very true.
I know. Another interesting thing about this is I'm far from the first to think this, but it seems like Jonah was a big inspiration for the story of Jesus. So
Really?
yeah, in Mark 4:35 through 41, Jesus was on a boat with the disciples and he was sleeping through a storm, just like what happened with Jonah. They woke him up and then Jesus calmed the storm, right?
Sure.
So it's not like a big similarity there, but there's like an echo there where I wouldn't be surprised if the writer of that story was familiar with Jonah, especially with what's coming after this.
Well, there's been other storms in the Bible as well. I feel like we talked about one where they were also throwing stuff off the boat.
Oh, we were talking about...
I feel like Paul
was
traveling somewhere and they kept throwing shit off the end.
I think it was. Yeah. I think before, in Acts.
So that would have been post Jesus.
Like right before he retired to Rome.
Yeah.
Like they were having issues getting there.
Right.
Or something.
Yep. But yeah, it's a theme that runs throughout.
Yeah. But then so Jesus dies for 3 days.
Oh,
spending
Jonah's
3 days in Sheol.
Yeah.
Right. And then coming back meant salvation for the world for Jesus, just like with Jonah coming back, it meant salvation for Nineveh.
Gotcha.
Right? So my guess is the writer of the first gospel, which we don't have the text of, the first gospel, right? My guess is that writer was heavily inspired by the story of Jonah for some reason.
You might be right. Maybe there's parts missing and maybe there was more to be inspired by.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
It is a very fucking weird way to end a story. He's just
at the end of it,
sitting under a booth with a sunburned top of the head.
At the end of it, God nailed him to the bush.
And just spontaneously combusted. If anything, God should have been like, I don't know why you're mad at the bush. You have legs.
I gave them to you.
You could, I don't know, go somewhere that is out
has
of
a bush.
The sun.
Yeah.
A house.
You could go back to your own country now.
What kind of shelter needs a bush to keep you out of the sun, by the way? I'm really starting to doubt our relationship.
Yeah.
I might need to cut ties after this.
I think this is the last we hear of Jonah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For good reason.
Yeah. He might have just died there. Maybe God did. Maybe
just laid down and died.
This is like the spoilers. This is like the Sopranos ending.
I see. The writers of Sopranos got inspiration from the end of the story of Jonah by just cutting to black, and you have to figure out as the watcher what happened after that.
Right. Yeah.
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 Well, that makes the story infinitely more interesting.
I just love it, though. I just love that it's so stupid that the last thing God is saying is that they don't know their right hand from their left.
Yeah, that was
I don't understand.
Real racist feeling.
Kind of, yeah. But they I don't even what does it mean in this context?
Why are you so upset? It sounds to me like he's saying, why are you so upset? These people are all stupid.
Kind of, yeah.
Like you shouldn't be upset about people because they're stupid.
They don't know their moral right hand from their moral left.
You shouldn't be upset with them because they're stupid. Just like I'm not upset with you right now, even though clearly you're stupid.
Me?
No. This is God talking to Jonah.
Oh, okay. The way you were saying, the way you were looking at me when
I was staring at you intently.
Just like I'm not upset that you're so stupid right now. Yeah.
No.
But then also many animals. Like that's his last line. That's God's last line in this. And also many animals. Like
somebody was proofreading it and they were like, they never mentioned the animals again, but they were a big part of the story. So
it's weird
throw it in there.
It's weird how big of a thing animals are in this story.
Yeah.
It's because between the fish and these other, it's funny. Like I was watching one video on a Christian interpretation of this, and they're like drawing out pictures of the cows singing praises to God. It's like, and there's nothing in the text about that. Like they're just that they
singing
put
animals?
sackcloth on them. Yeah.
Wait. They put sackcloth on the animals?
Yeah, that's what the king said. Like that. humans and animals need to fast and put sackcloth on.
I did not, when you said that sentence, did not think like, I didn't think that like, I assumed that meant that no one could eat or drink. I didn't realize that also meant like animals had sackcloth.
Yeah.
They don't wear clothes normally.
No, I know. That's what's so fucking weird about it.
Why would you put clothing on them?
Yeah. They're putting sackcloth on the animals.
Whose job was that?
Yeah.
And who made all the little shirts for the cows? Did they just throw it over them like a blanket, or did they literally make like little arms?
Right.
To put their little hooves through.
Yeah. I don't know.
And like, do they have cats? Because you
Was
know,
it the cats too? Yeah.
putting sackcloth shirts on a cat.
For 40 days, the cats were just frozen basically on the ground sideways.
They couldn't eat anyway. So how do you stop some of these animals from eating? Like if an animal gets hungry enough, there probably weren't pigs, I guess, right? But if they had like pigs, if a pig got hungry enough, or goats, they'll eat garbage.
Also, I'm pretty sure when you do fast, you still drink water.
Well, yeah, you will die of dehydration before you die of starvation.
40 days without water?
Yeah. No, everybody would have died.
Yeah.
There's just no way.
Yeah.
Especially the animals.
Yeah. Oh, and this reminds me, one. Go ahead.
I was going to say, when our cat's water bowl was empty, he dragged it across the floor to let us know he didn't have any water. So I can't imagine a bunch of animals going that long without water and not just causing chaos and then lying down somewhere to die.
Right. Yeah. I just remembered though, one other interpretation about this is that, the prophecy of it getting overthrown does come true, right? Because they do all repent and everything. And, they weren't, the prophecy wasn't specific about and how it's overthrown, and so.
True.
So it could be that this was coming true and after 40 days.
Oh, okay.
I know.
It's a real stretch to the meaning of the word overthrown.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's the story of Jonah.
Well, huge disappointment.
Yeah.
Just like most of the Bible.
Right. Yeah. Next time on BSFA, we're going to start season 5.
Oh.
And we're going to go back in time. Yeah. We're going back to the book of Joshua.
Okay. Not the same thing as the book of Josh.
No, that was about me.
Book of Joshua.
Yeah, this is the book of Joshua, an actual book in the Bible.
And what place? So the first book of the Bible is Genesis.
Yep. And we read through from Genesis to most of Genesis. We read through to the end of Moses's lifetime, which I believe, if I remember correctly, ended with Numbers or Deuteronomy. I can't remember for sure. I think Deuteronomy was the last one.
Joshua was one of Moses's people, right?
Yeah, so Joshua was his right hand man, basically.
Okay.
And he takes over for Moses when Moses dies.
Right.
And that's where we ended, was with Moses dying.
So this picks up
right after that, and what we're going to go through in the next season is going to be the history of, like, getting further with the history of what happened after Moses to get the Israelites into Israel and setting up their kingdom and all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. Sounds like a raging good time.
Yeah. I think it'll be a lot more entertaining than the New Testament was.
I don't know. It's hard to get over the crazy angels and the virgin birth. I mean, that's shit's insane.
Yeah. I think we'll have some interesting stuff, though.
Cool.
In the book of Joshua. You got Joshua and the Battle of Jericho to look forward to.
Oh, I think I know a song about that.
Yeah. But then when we get into Judges, there's like Samson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And there's some cool ones that most folks have never heard of.
Oh,
too.
Cool ones.
Not cool ones. Let's be honest. Not cool.
With that, so I can be excited.
Let's be honest. It's not cool, but it's like funny or badass.
Yeah.
In certain ways.
Listen, just because the Bible as a whole is shouldn't have as
A-hole.
much power as
Yeah.
it has been given. Like, I think we can all collectively agree that there's some random pieces of interesting goodness in there,
Yeah.
literarily speaking.
Yeah.
Sure.
There's a story about a dude who's in a fish for a few days.
That was not one of them,
No.
unfortunately.
With that, they all lived miserably ever after. Thank you so much for checking out our podcast. Help us share the good news by sending this to a friend or leaving a review to help others find us. And if you want to support us with a donation, you can do that on our website at bsfa.cc. So soft, so supple. Maybe it's Maybelline.